Meeting is now being recorded as well as live streamed, so I'll take this to Darren to the Housing and Technical Resources Committee on 8th of November 2023. We have apologies from Councillor Brogan. I've noted Councillor Archie Buchanan and Councillor Matthew Buchanan present. Councillor Kalikis? No. Councillor Convery is present. I have apologies from Councillor Cooper. Councillor Cowan, Councillor Cowie and Councillor Devlin are present. Councillor Dewar is present. Councillor Fagan? No. I have apologies from Councillor Falconer, but we have Councillor Walker substituting. Councillor Ferguson present and Councillor Fulton. Councillor Gowland is present. Councillor Gray is present. Councillor Lambie I have present. And Councillor Lockhart also present. Councillor Mars, Councillor McCallan, Councillor McCreary present. Councillor McLachlan, Councillor Ray, Councillor Shearer. We have apologies from Councillor Williams with Councillor Logan substituting. We also have a number of councillor officers present. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much, Helen. The first item on the agenda is declarations of interest. Is there any declarations of interest? No. Item 2 on the agenda is the minutes of the previous meeting, page 5 to 18. Is there any questions or comments regarding the minutes? I'll move that as correct.
Councillor Coe.
Sorry, beg your pardon. Andrea?
Thanks, Chair. I just wanted to raise something that's been brought to me by the Ward 7 councillors. This regards the community facility review in East Kilbride Central South. Just to ask if someone from Property Services could respond to emails that have been sent by Councillor Elaine McDougall. She sent an email on the 28th of September and another on the 24th of October and hasn't received responses to either.
Well, I don't think that's really a matter that's relevant for the minute. You know, if you want to ask a question, you can do it, but we're looking at the minute. You know, you're asking a question and you're entitled to do that, but this is the minute that we're dealing with. It's not a matter on the agenda.
Okay, I just felt it was relevant because that's the only mention of this in the papers.
Okay, so, I mean, I've seen your email and you're right. There was an email that was sent and there hasn't been a response, and perhaps Joanne can deal with that. Joanne? Joanne?
Yes, Councillor, there is a response being prepared that's updating on the communications that there have been with the various interested parties at Ward 7. Part of the delay has been in making sure that we had feedback from all of the different angles before we come back to you and the ward members, but that will be out very shortly.
Thank you very much. Is there anything else on the minutes? I'll move that as a correct record. Thank you very much. Item 3 on the agenda, Revenue Budget Monitoring 23 to 24, Housing and Technical Resources, excluding Housing Revenue Account, and that's page 19 to 24. And Graham Booth, please.
Thank you, Chair. Good morning, everyone. The purpose of this report, which is on pages 19 to 24 of your papers, is to provide information on actual expenditure against budget for Housing and Technical Resources, excluding the HRA, for the period 1st of April 2023 to 8th of September 2023. And this is the second Revenue Monitoring Report to Committee for financial year 2023-24. Section 5.1 on page 19 notes that as at 8th of September, there is a break-even position against the phased budget, with the forecast for the budget to 31st of March 2024 also a break-even position. Appendices A to C on pages 21 to 23 provide details on the financial position, and detailed variance explanations and proposed variants for each of the services are shown in Appendices B to C. I refer members back to Section 2 of the report. Committee is asked to note the break-even position as at 8th of September 2023 and to approve the proposed budget variants. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Graham. Is there any questions or comments? No, I'll move that report.
I'll second it.
Thank you very much. Item 4 on the agenda, is Revenue Budget Monitoring 23-24 Housing Technical Resources Housing Revenue Account. Back over to you again, Graham, please.
Thank you, Chair. Again, the purpose of this report, which is on pages 25 to 27, is to provide information on actual expenditure against budget for Housing and Technical Resources HRA, again for the same period, 1st of April 2023 to 8th of September 2023. And again, this is also the second revenue monitoring report to Committee for Financial Year 23-24. Section 5.1 on page 25 notes that as at 8th of September, there is a break-even position against the phased budget, and the forecast for the budget to 31st of March 2024 is also a break-even position. Appendix A on page 27 provides detailed variance explanations for the HRA. I refer members back to section 2 of the report. Committee is asked to note the break-even position as at 8th of September 2023. Thank you.
Thank you, Graham. Is there any questions or comments? No. Can we agree that report? I'll move the recommendations. Can we agree the report?
And I'll second that.
Thank you very much. Item 5 is the Capital Budget Monitoring 23-24 Housing and Technical Resources, excluding the HRA. And I'm going to ask Lorraine Hagan to take us through that report. Lorraine, please.
Thanks, Chair. Good morning, Committee. Agenda item 5 then on page 29 of your papers is the standard budget monitoring report. It's the second for the current financial year, and this is for the Resources Capital Programme excluding the Housing Revenue Account, and takes us to the 8th of September in the current year. Section 3 gives you the background and explains how the budget was based on the overall capital programme that was set earlier in the year, with amendments which were approved by the Executive Committee in September of this year. This gives us a budget now for the year of 12.258 million. Section 5 details the financial implications then and notes the resources programme for the year of 12.258 million, and notes that that budget is a net increase of 335,000 since we last reported to committee back in August, and that reflects the adjustments that were approved by the Executive Committee, and they are noted on Appendix A of your papers, which is on page 31. Finally, section 5.3 then notes that the anticipated spend was 1.364 million, and actual spend incurred to the 8th of September was 1.297 million. So we're slightly behind, 67,000 behind profile, and that's a timing issue only. I would look to refer committee back to the recommendations then in section 2 of your paper, and note that the Housing and Technical Resources budget of 12.258 million and the spend to the 8th of September of 1.297 million be noted. Thank you.
Any questions or comments? I'll move the recommendations.
I'll second it.
Agreed? Thank you. Item 6, Capital Budget Monitoring 23-24 Housing and Technical Resources, and that's the Housing Revenue Account. Back to Graham Booth, please.
Thank you, Chair. The purpose of this report, which is on pages 33 to 35 of your papers, is to provide information on the progress of the capital programme for the Housing and Technical Resources HRA, again for the period 1st of April to 8th of September 2023. And again, this is also the second capital monitoring report to Committee for Financial Year 23-24. Section 5.1 on page 33 notes the Housing Capital Programme for 23-24 totalling 69.596 million, and is detailed along with the funding sources at Appendix A to the report on page 35. Actual expenditure to 8th of September is 19.378 million, and this is 1.9 million pounds behind programme, and that's mainly due to a number of external fabric projects being behind programme. This is a result of projects requiring to be reprogrammed, mainly taking account of new procurement routes, and also some delays requiring further consideration for some works. And work will continue in the coming months to deliver spend to the budgeted levels. I refer members back to section 2 of the report. Committee is asked to note the revised Housing and Technical Resources HRA capital programme of 69.596 million and expenditure to 8th of September 2023 of 19.378 million. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Is there any questions? No, I'll move the recommendation.
And I'll second it.
Thank you. Item 7 on the agenda, Housing and Technical Resources Workforce Monitoring, July to August 23. Going to ask, and that's page 37 to 44. I'm going to ask Elaine Maxwell to take us through that. Elaine, please.
Thank you, Chair, and good morning, everyone. Members will be aware this is a standard workforce monitoring report which is prepared by Personnel and provides committee with an update on the employment information for the resource for the period July to August 2023, and as noted is contained within your papers at page 37 to 44. Members will see at section 4.1 the detail on the absence statistics for the resource, and you will see that the resource's absence figure for August was 6.4%, which did represent quite a slight increase of 0.2 when compared to the previous month. When we looked at August 2022, we can see again that there was a bit of an increase in terms of 0.7%. And again, you'll note that the August figure for the resource is 2.3% higher than the council-wide figure. Just to give a bit of comfort to committee in terms of the progress in relation to maximising attendance and the absence levels for the resource, we have seen quite a considerable movement over the last couple of months. So what I can see is the figure has come down quite considerably at October, and we're just sitting just slightly over 5%. Moving on to section 4.2 of the report, which outlines the occupational health information, and again that's found in Appendix 2. You will see that there were 107 occupational health referrals made during that period. Again, just a slight increase of 1, which again you would expect to see based on the level of our absence at that point in time. Section 4.3 outlines the accidents and incidents, and you'll see that there were 8 recorded during that period. Again, with a slight increase of 2 when we're looking at the same period of last year. And just to note that obviously along with our health and safety manager and team, all incidents are monitored and investigated appropriately. Section 4.4 outlines the employee relations activity, and you will see that during the period there was 1 disciplinary hearing held. There were no grievance hearings, but there were 4 dignity at work complaints raised during that time. There were no appeals heard at the appeals panel during the period. Section 4.5 outlines the leavers, and you'll see that there were 12 leavers during the period eligible for an exit interview, with 4 being carried out. 4.7 outlines that there was 21 employees left the resource, and managers have indicated that all posts are being replaced. Section 5 details the staffing watch information for the resource, and the staffing watch information is at June of this year, and there was a decrease in the number of employees by 9. With that, I would refer committee back to section 2 of the report and ask that to approve the recommendation to note the employment information for the period July and August of 2023. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Elaine. Is there any questions or comments? No, I'll move the recommendation.
I'll second it.
Thank you. Item 8 on the agenda, South Lanarkshire Council Strategic Housing Investment Plan 2024 to 29. I'm going to ask Sharon Egan.
Thank you, Chair. Good morning, everyone. So this morning I'm going to talk through this, the Council Strategic Housing Investment Plan 2024 to 2029. So the purpose of the report is to provide committee with an update on additional considerations given as part of the development of South Lanarkshire Council Strategic Housing Investment Plan. It seeks approval for the SHIP for the 5-year period from 2024 to 2029. So some background to the report is that this is a 5-year rolling plan. Its purpose is to set out our affordable housing development priorities and to guide the way in which Scottish Government funding and other resources are allocated to achieve the current South Lanarkshire Local Housing Strategy outcomes. The local authority is required to update the SHIP on an annual basis, with sites added, removed or revised as appropriate. The most recent SHIP, which covers from the period 2023 to 2028, was approved by the Housing and Tech Resource Committee on the 5th of October 2022. Our Local Housing Strategy 2022 to 2027 was approved at Exec Committee on the 30th of November 2022 and highlights a commitment by the Council and its partners to actively seek opportunities to develop housing across South Lanarkshire to both meet housing need and support social and economic regeneration. On the 30th of November 2022, Exec Committee also approved a new affordable housing supply target for the Council, aiming to deliver an additional 1,300 homes by the 31st of March 2027. This will be delivered through a combination of new council homes and the acquisition of existing homes from the market, which are the new sites set out within the SHIP. So just some background for the new 2023 to 2028 SHIP. A table of the priority sites is provided within Appendix 1, which is page 71 of your pack. The document has been updated in line with national guidance and provides a detailed context and rationale for the priorities which could be delivered over the 5-year period to March 2029. So Table A, which is at 5.4 or page 47 of your pack, illustrates the anticipated distribution of new build completions across the 4 housing market areas within South Lanarkshire over the 5-year period. That also sets out the percentage increase of each compared with an existing housing for social rent in the area. So the total for South Lanarkshire that we are hoping to, committed to achieving through the SHIP is 2,442. The SHIP tables reflect development progress and comprise a combination of projects rolled forward from the previous SHIP and also new sites consistent with our local housing strategy strategic priorities. For these sites to be carried forward, each have been re-evaluated against priorities and to ensure that development remains viable. This process has resulted in some long-standing sites being temporarily removed to enable the SHIP to align closer with actual delivery. So our next steps is to ensure compliance with specified timescales. A draft copy of the SHIP 2024 to 2029 was submitted to the Scottish Government on the 28th of October. Subject to approval from this morning's committee, a final approved version will then be submitted. So I'll take you back to the recommendations. The committee is asked to approve the following. That South Lanarkshire Council Strategic Housing Investment Plan 24-29, as detailed in Appendix 1, be approved for publication and to be submitted to the Scottish Government, and that the key considerations made as part of the development of South Lanarkshire Council's SHIP be noted. Thank you.
Thank you, Sharon. Is there any questions or comments? Ross Lambie.
Thanks, Chair. Good morning, everyone. I've got 3 questions really on this one I'd like to know answers about. So the first one is on our new housing that we're looking to build. The council, quite rightly in the past, has tried its best to build the best quality of council homes that we can possibly do, and that involves in a lot of times over specifying, going beyond what the building regulations requirements are for insulation and sustainable technology and things like that. And we try to compete, I think, sometimes with the private house building industry in terms that we seem to focus on semi-detached and terraces with front and back gardens and off-street parking and things like that. I'm just wondering whether in our current financial position, whether we might need to start to look at that strategy and think, okay, we need to be providing a lot more adequate houses, which are good, but they're not way in excess of the building regs. And maybe we need to start consider building more flatted developments, which take up less space and are far more efficient to build. That was the first one. The second one was on the refurb programme of our properties. A couple of committees ago, I asked about the heat pumps, which we all remember last winter we had a lot of problems because of the very cold weather, and I was told that there's discussions ongoing with the manufacturers about how we prevent it in future. Just an update on that, whether our strategy going forward should still include these or there should be a pause on the rollout of that technology. And then the last one, thanks for bearing with me, the last one is just on our buyback strategy. Can we buy back properties from housing associations? Because I mentioned in a previous committee that in Douglas there's about 40 empty properties owned by the housing association, and for several years now they've been very slow at coming up with solutions for them. And there's similar houses of the same construction currently inhabited quite happily. So in our buyback strategy, can we buy back from the housing associations? Thanks, Chair.
Thanks, Ross. 3 points here, Sharon. On the first point on the strategy, can you touch on that? Jonathan? Okay, Jonathan.
Thanks, Councillor. The standards that we currently build to are based on national standards, so we don't really have much scope to reduce that, and nor would we want to either, to be honest, because we do feel that we're building to tenants' needs, so we're aiming to reduce the costs they have for fuel, for example, aiming to reduce the amount they pay to heat their homes during the winter months. We're also building homes for life, essentially, so homes that we want people to be able to live in as long as they need to, and making them as adaptable as possible as well. So the standards that we do build to, as I say, are national, but there's a reason why we do build to them. Appreciate they're much higher than the private sector standards that exist at the moment, but we are aware that the Scottish Government is currently consulting on bringing the private sector up to the same standards as the social rented sector as well. So there should be more alignment between the two tenures.
So, Ross, I'm interested when you said beyond the standard, but Jonathan's just touched on we're working to the standard. Does that satisfy you? Is there anything else you'd like to add on that? Because I'm quite curious myself what you're saying. Is it there? No.
Councillor Lambie, could you request to speak? Oh, thanks.
Yes, okay. I believe we're not talking about the building control standards there. It's more a kind of national government policy about how we build affordable houses. I'm just curious if we are, maybe the question needs to be rephrased, are there any areas where we are slightly over specifying? And then the other part of the question was, we're obviously focusing on terraced and semi-detached. It's obviously far more efficient to build flatted developments, more cost effective. Just wondered if that was an option.
Jonathan, can you touch on that?
Of course, yep. Thanks, Councillor, for follow-up. Absolutely. So there's very little area that we're over-specifying on. We're obviously building to the most economic way we can, making sure costs, we've always got one eye on costs, so there's very little we want to compromise or can compromise on that will end up taking us below those standards. So where we can, we absolutely will do that to make sure we're maximising the number of units we get for the budget we have available. In relation to your third part of the question, the role for flats and the mix of properties essentially across the different sites, absolutely, it's obviously much more economical to have flatted properties, and we use them where we can. They're certainly good for amenity conditions as well, where we have level access, we have lift access and things. But there's also a need for semi-detached and terrace properties. There's a need for gardens, there's a need for outdoor space. So we need to consider all that as part of the mix of each individual site. When we're looking at the new planning guidance as well, we want to make sure that we're doing mixed sites. So in new sites that we're taking forward, we'll have some where we have flatted properties, but we also have next to that the terrace properties, or even fully detached properties that can be adapted for larger homes and things like that as well. So it's all considered into it, and whilst we totally understand the fact that flats are more economical and you can get more of them on space, in particular when looking at our new targets, it'd be much easier to achieve if we just put flats everywhere. It's also not quite right for the list that we have in terms of demand for properties. So it's absolutely something we consider, but it's done as well as considering the need for the other types of properties that exist.
Thanks, John.
Okay, thank you.
On heat pumps, who's going to address that, Joanne?
Yes, thanks, Councillor Lambie. I would confirm that we have been continuing to look at the heat pumps, and we are considering what geographies we use them in. There is a role for them, but it might not be suitable in every single type of location. So we're not saying we won't ever use them, but there is an additional kind of consideration about where they may or may not be suitable.
Okay, thanks.
And buybacks from the RSLs, that was another part of his question.
Yep. We absolutely can buy back from housing associations, but only where we actually require the property and there is a housing need for that particular location or that particular type of house.
Okay, thank you.
Am I right in saying, Joanne, that there's no restriction in what we can buy? We have purchased, I think, if I'm correct me if I'm wrong, we have purchased properties that weren't necessarily previously council tenants or council tenancies or RSLs. Is that the case?
Sorry, the vast majority of houses we buy are ex-council houses. On occasion, if there's a special need, if there's a specific requirement for an individual, we can buy on the market.
So there's quite a lot of scope there, Ross, for us to pick and choose what we're going to look at. Andrea Cowan.
Thanks, Chair. Can I first of all, before I ask my question, or it's a comment, but can I also say that I think council housing should always be of the highest standard, and council tenants deserve good quality housing. They don't deserve to have a cheaper version of the private developments. So I'm sorry that Councillor Lambie brought that up, because I feel it's important that council housing is top quality. Second, my point really is about the purchase of existing homes, and I'm delighted to see our targets are to buy 600 over the 5-year period of the SHIP. I think that's it's ambitious, and I think it's fantastic. I believe that we bought something like 57 or 58 last year, and I also understand from my meeting with officers that we've got 124 in the pipeline at the moment, which is remarkable, and well done to everybody involved in that. But as everybody knows, that's my line of business, and I've brought this up before. There's no communication to the business that this route is available, and I know because of my council involvement, but I've mentioned this before, that when people inherit a property, sometimes it's the first time that they've had to deal with the sale of a property, and they just automatically go to an estate agent or to their solicitor. And if we don't tell these people that it's very straightforward just to contact the council and, you know, ask the question, you know, are you interested in buying this property? Then I think that's an opportunity that we're missing, and I would just ask that we maybe have a look at that and, you know, be in direct contact with the people who are actually selling the houses, not just the people who own them. Thank you.
I remember you asking that question, Andrea, and the answer, I mean, it's all about publicity, isn't it? About how do we get that message out, Joanne? You want to comment?
Thank you, Councillor Cowan, for your thanks to the team, but also just to give you an assurance that we are getting applications direct from members of the public, as well as their solicitors and as well as estate agents, so there is a mix. We would always encourage an individual that approaches us to still seek legal advice before they enter into any agreement with the council, given the importance of the decisions that they're making. But we do get direct applications. It is on the council's website, and we will speak to COMS and ask about it maybe being refreshed so that it comes back as a feature, if you like, just to re-emphasise it.
Okay. Do you want to come back, Andrea?
Yes, please. Thanks, Joanne. I appreciate that. It's just that, you know, I don't think the council website is the only means that we should be using. You know, for example, right to the head offices of, you know, Slater Holgan House and you know, Retty and, you know, all of the other agents. And I've mentioned before about maybe doing some publicity through the Law Society, where the journals go into every solicitor's office. You know, these are cost-effective ways of getting the message out. It's not, I'm not asking for, you know, a big advertising programme, but I just feel that, as I say, 600 is ambitious. I know we're on track that, you know, at the moment, but we talked about this, and the housing market is helping with that at the moment. That could change, as we know, that goes up and down. So as I say, it's just a suggestion that we reach out to the professional bodies as well. That's really my point. Thanks.
Your comments noted, and sure we'll do everything we can. Eileen Logan.
Daisy, thanks, Chair. Again, I'm surprised at the remarks regarding housing and housing standards, etc. As everybody probably does know, I'm a great company person, and I truthfully believe that we should put out the best that we can for the people that we represent and require housing. And I think it needs to be surely, each area is different, and it's horses for courses. Some places might be all right to put in flats, but why should people with wee families or whatever they have, or disabilities, well, you'll just be stuck there because that's the wee corner we've got, and we'll just build there, and it'll need to be, you know, 5 stories high, and you'll need to climb all these stairs. I went to visit somebody and I said, I'm not coming up because I couldn't manage up all these flights. It was a housing association, can't manage up, so I'm not coming. And we've seen, and I've been here for a long time, 43 years, we've seen standards that maybe weren't no so much in our area, and they're riddled with damp, they're cardboard walls, people tell you they can hear everything that's going on. So yeah, we should be building, and I'm a great believer in houses for life. I've said this umpteen times. If you can get a house and we put in everything that we can, then the person could maybe go in at 30 years of age and still be there at 80 years of age, because each year you could adapt it to keep them there. And everybody knows that the older houses are of the best standard, because a lot of them were built brick houses. And really think you need a mixture. People are entitled to a semi-detached house, and people are entitled to a terrace house, and, as was said, garden space. Some people might want to go to flats. In my area, that's rare because it's not the first choice of people. But if it suits the amenity houses we have that are flatted, yep, they're great. They suit the people, they suit the needs. Flat, up you go, and lifts takes people to where they want to go. They don't particularly want a wee garden. So it is, and I think we have to trust the officers for each site that we have just to look at what's going on. But we should be proactive in looking for our sites, looking for what we want, and not just thinking, oh, that'll do. Because that's no fair, and it's never been fair. And I think we're on track, we're on message. And the other thing that I'm quite annoyed about as well, people sometimes wrongly assume there's a certain type of person maybe who requires a house. But in this day and age, we're seeing it more and more. As the cost of living bites in, it's every type of family that are now coming through your door. Every type of need is there. People who had work, now they don't have work. People this, that. You get marriage breakups. You get all sorts of things to deal with. And nothing is this. Each person that comes through your door is not in the same boat. So to the best that we can, so that they stand the test of time, and that we don't have 10 years down the line all the problems that we've seen, not so much in maybe our council area, but in other council areas where they're even pulling down whole estates and whole high-rise flats. Yeah. So I think we do a very good job. I've always thought that. And on the buyback, just quickly, could I ask a question on that? I knew somebody who wanted to sell their house directly to the council because they wanted another family to have what they'd had. They didn't want a lot of money. They just, if it was that was the price, they were looking for nothing. But before they could do that, they had to go to put it onto an estate agent. Maybe this has been changed since then, right? Has it? That's fine. That's fine. Thank you.
Thanks, Eileen. Stephen, I believe you wanted to come in here.
Thank you, Chair. And listen, thanks very much for all the questions. It's just to give a bit of assurance that I think this is a really, really positive report again for South Lanarkshire. Whilst I understand why the question was asked about, against a backdrop where we hear about all the things that go on in the world, about land values, about material shortages, just to be very, very clear about this report, what we're talking about is building the right houses in the right locations. We will continue to build a mix of house types. We'll be looking at progressive housing. We will be focusing on affordability. We will be meeting various needs. And we'll be tackling fuel poverty. All the things that you would expect, because I agree with the comments you've made. All the evidence is there. Everything we do is based on quality. If you look at the new builds that have been built over the last few years, the quality is absolutely brilliant. Unashamedly, we just don't apologise for the space standards, for the quality of the components, for the quality of the architecture. It's absolutely fantastic, and that's what we'll continue to do against the lack, sometimes the lack of resources that come our way. But we're really pleased with this report, and it's to give assurance to everybody that the quality, the mix, the house types, the space standards will be there, and we'll be meeting varying needs moving forward, and we'll be promoting progressive housing across the range of sites as we've discussed previously. Thank you.
Thanks very much, Stephen. Well done. Ross, you want to come back in?
Yeah, thanks, guys. Just a point to clarify, really. So what I was getting at, really, is that the building regs are the legal requirements of what standards we have to meet. There's a separate set of national standards which come from the Scottish Government in Edinburgh, which require local authorities to build in much higher specification. And the point I was trying to make was that makes our job more difficult with the limited funds that we have, and that's why it's quite often remarked in these committees that it's cheaper for the council to buy a house than to build one, because the private developers are not following the same high level of specification and standards. I'm just looking at that situation versus we all see on the news and the papers about housing crises and lack of housing, people declaring themselves homeless because of lack of supply. I'm just, quite rightly, I believe, as an elected member, probing that situation just to make sure we're not leaving anything on the table. Thanks.
Thanks, Ross. Okay, Kenny McCreary.
Thanks, Chair. Just a comment from me, really. There seems to be a suggestion that flats are less desirable than detached houses or semi-detached. But in my area, as it happens, the flats are quite often more expensive than the semi-detached because they're more desirable. People like the privacy they offer. Sometimes you get a better view and so on. So, as I say, I don't think flats equals a lesser standard than other types of houses. Thanks, Chair.
I don't really think that's been suggested, but it's market driven, and as Eileen has said very correctly, it's horses for courses. Some people prefer a flat, some people don't. There's lots of reasons why a flat isn't suitable for everyone. And if you look back and go back to the 60s and 70s, the enormous amounts of flatted properties that were built, they're all now gone because they were deemed unsuitable. There was all sorts of issues over and above just the ability to get in and out of these properties. There's a social issue of it as well. But there are people more than happy. There's one just down the road there in Union Street, I believe, and you can't really call it a flat. If you called it a flat, you'd offend the owners. It's apartments and penthouses, and there's one there at £450,000, less than 500 yards from where we're sitting, and it's a flat. So I take your point, Kenny, but it's there's nobody's criticising flats, but some people may require flats, but if you're attending surgeries, and I know you'll have this yourself, people who have got families are looking for, and as Eileen has said, looking for a front and a back garden because children need a wee bit of space to get outside and enjoy the fresh air. Stephen, did you want to come back there?
Yeah, just to finish on that point, because Councillor's right, that of course we've got to get that mix of housing right, and that will include flats or apartments, whatever we want to call them. But the bottom line is, irrespective of the house type, the space standards, the quality, the energy efficiency will be to a very, very high standard. And we move within the SHIP, we're moving towards town centre regeneration, not just the big urban towns, but town centre regeneration across South Lanarkshire. There'll be instances, of course, it'll be more flatted development, but that'll be desirable accommodation. So, of course, I agree with you. A flat's a flat. It's a lifestyle choice for some people, and it's very, very good accommodation we'll be building.
Yeah, thanks, Stephen. Eileen, I've got one more question. Eileen,
Sorry, just if it was me that you were hinting at, Councillor McCreary, I don't know if it was, but anyway, I did say horses for courses, as you rightly said, and I can only tell you that we collectively have to look at each site, think what's best for the mix of people that we have in our books that require to go to there, and therefore, yep, I don't think we should just build any one thing. It should be a good mixture, and I will stick by that, particularly for my area. Thank you.
And the feedback does come from local offices as well as what the demand is and what people are looking for, and that's considered when there's any new development. Okay, so I'll move that recommendation. I don't know if I have done already, but I'll move the recommendations.
And I'll second that.
Okay, can we agree on that report? Thank you. Item 9 on the agenda, policy and strategy review schedule, and that's Cameron Mitchell, please.
Thanks very much, Chair, and good morning. The purpose of this report, which is detailed at section 1.1, is to seek approval for Housing and Technical Resources Policy and Strategy Review Schedule. Section 3 of the report sets out the background, and at 3.1 notes that the schedule is reviewed and reported to committee on an annual basis, with the last updated schedule approved at committee on the 14th of December 2022. Section 3.2 notes the role which the schedule provides, which is to support systematic service development and improvement, providing a clear time frame for the formal review of policies and strategies, and facilitating the development of an annual programme of our customers and an engagement and involvement programme. Section 4.1 of the report provides an outline of the content of the policy and strategy review schedule, which is attached to Appendix 1. The schedule itself sets out details of each policy and strategy, frequency of review, and when reviews are next scheduled to take place. Sections 4.3 and 4.4 in the report summarise the scope of the strategies that are covered and the strategies and policies which are covered by the schedule. Just moving to next steps, in terms of next steps, section 5.1 of the report notes the content of the schedule is appropriately reflected in the resource service plans for 24-25, resource and service plans for 24-25, sorry, and will also be used to establish a joint programme for customer engagement. I'd highlight section 5.3, which confirms that Housing and Technical Resources Committee will continue to be updated fully and separately in relation to the development of the specific policies and strategies contained within the schedule. Referring back to the recommendations detailed at 2.1 in the report, committee is asked to approve the following. Firstly, that the policy and strategy review schedule attached to Appendix 1 be approved, and secondly, that the outcome of policy and strategy reviews be reported to future committees in line with the schedule. Thanks very much, Chair.
Okay. Is there any, thank you, Cameron. Is there any questions or comments? No. I'll move the recommendations.
And I'll second it.
Agreed. Item 10 on the agenda is laundry facilities, introduction of charging for 24-25. I'm going to ask Sharon Egan to take us through that. Sharon, please.
Thank you, Chair. So the purpose of the report is to set out the proposal for the introduction of laundry charges across their multi-storey blocks from April 2024. So some background to this is that the Council owns a total of 21 high-rise blocks across East Kilbride, Hamilton and Cambuslang. Laundry facilities to tenants and residents are available within 9 of those high-rise blocks and 1 low-rise block of flats. Now these include washing machines, spinners and dryers. In East Kilbride, there is 3 blocks that have laundry facilities, and these are the only blocks that currently have a charging facility within these with a nominal fee. Whereas within Hamilton and Cambuslang, there is 6 high-rise and 1 low-rise block, which have similar laundry facilities, however in the past have been free to use. The current charges within East Kilbride are 80 pence for a wash cycle and 10 pence for a 10-minute dry cycle. Given that charging arrangements are not consistent across the high-rise blocks, an appraisal was undertaken which identified a need to introduce a standardised charging arrangement for this service. This would address the inequity of the current position in East Kilbride and also service-wide, whereby the cost of the service is borne across all council tenants rather than those directly using the service. So the next steps following committee approval, a programme of engagement with those tenants and residents affected will be undertaken prior to the introduction of charging from the 1st of April. I seek recommendations, so committee is asked to approve the following, which is the introduction of laundry charges on the basis set out in section 4 from the 1st of April to be approved, and a programme of engagement with tenants and residents is now undertaken.
Thank you, Sharon. Is there any questions, comments? No? Surprised at that. Anyway, I'll move the recommendations.
And I'll second it.
Thank you very much. Agree that report. Item 11 is acquisition of 6 houses at Tenter Place and Lampmaker Drive in Hamilton. I'm going to ask Jerry McFarlane to take us through that report.
Thank you, Chair. The purpose of this report, which is on pages 85 to 87, is to request approval to acquire 6 houses at Tenter Place and Lampmaker Drive, Hamilton, from Lovell Homes. The Exec Committee on the 30th of November approved the revised council house supply target of 1,300 additional homes to be achieved through a flexible combination of new homes built on behalf of the council on existing council land, new homes purchased off the shelf from housing developers, and the acquisition of suitable existing homes. Through the ongoing redevelopment of the former Phillips factory site at Wellhall Road, Hamilton, Lovell Homes are building a total of 163 houses. And as part of the Section 75 planning agreement for this development, they are providing 40 houses to the council through a turnkey arrangement. An opportunity has now arisen for the council to acquire an additional 6 off-the-shelf units within the current calendar year, and these units help increase supply and meet housing need in a high-pressure area. As the council are already acquiring units within the existing development as part of the Section 75 agreement, there will be an existing management presence within the immediate locality. The properties have been assessed as being in an area of housing need and of a size and type that the council has demand for. The acquisitions present the council with an opportunity to deliver additional housing more quickly than through our ongoing new build programme, as planning consent has already been approved and development is nearing completion. It should be noted that the proposed acquisition of the 6 units is entirely separate transaction from the previous transaction of 40 houses pursuant to the Section 75 agreement. The acquisition will be eligible for Scottish Government Affordable Housing Grant funding and their assessment of the market value of the houses confirms that the proposed price presents good value for money and compares favourably with prices within the development and similar new properties on the open market. I would therefore refer committee back to the recommendations contained in section 2 of the report and ask that the Executive Directorate, Housing and Technical Resources, in conjunction with the Head of Admin and Legal, be authorised to conclude the matters pertaining to the acquisition. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Really good report. Thank you very much for that. Really pleased with that. And Andrea, you've got your hand up, I believe.
Yep, thanks, Chair. Just to say, yeah, great report, more good news, another 6 family houses, which is Councillor Logan inferred is what we're all asked about through our casework. It's always 3 or 4 bedroom houses that people are looking for. So this is great to add this to the stock. Great that it's been funded through the Scottish Government's funding, and I know that South Lanarkshire is one of 6 local authorities who have been highlighted. It's not really a good thing, I don't think, to be in the top 6, but it does have a benefit in that we will get additional funding. We're in the top 6 because of our homelessness crisis, but as I say, good to see some of this money being put to use. Thanks.
Thanks, Andrea. Yeah, anybody else? No? I'll move the recommendations.
And I'll second it.
Thank you. The next items on the agenda, there's 4 items for noting. And unless anyone's got any questions or comments, I would propose to move these on block. Can we agree that? Yes. We don't have any other, sorry.
Andrea.
Oh, beg your pardon. Here we go. Get 2 up. Andrea first. Beg your pardon. Sorry, no. It's Ross first. Ross Lambert.
Hi guys, sorry, my finger wasn't quite fast enough there to get in, Chair. Just because I'm a fairly new councillor, so I'm still getting to grips with some of this. So on this item for noting, there's the list of contracts approved. And just scanning through them, some jump out, like £2.5 million for fire doors in 3 buildings, and there's one on the 3rd page which is exactly £1 million contract for windows and doors, which is strange. It jumps out because it's such a round number. I just wondered what oversight we as a committee get on the contracts. What do we get to interrogate them any further, or do we get to know, was there only one person tendered for it? And just curious how we can interrogate further these kind of costs. Thanks.
And I'm going to ask Joanne to address that one. I think I know the answer, but on you go, Joanne.
Thanks, Councillor Lambie. These reports summarise the outcomes of detailed procurement reports that are carried out, and there are delegated approval processes that mean these reports are then discussed by senior management and the chair of the Housing and Technical Resources Committee. If there are any particular ones that you want more information on, please feel free to just give me a call.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thanks, Ross. Andrea?
Thanks, Chair. I'm sorry, I've got a couple of things on each of these items. Well, not the contracts, but I've got a couple of things. The agenda item 12, first of all, on page 96, there's a reference to the asylum dispersal. And I know everyone will be familiar with this crisis that's been talked about coming at Glasgow City Council, where the Home Office are streamlining their asylum application. And I'm just wondering if we're making arrangements and what the impact on South Lanarkshire would be. Obviously, our numbers are far less. I think Glasgow are looking at 1,400 additional housing applications coming at them, supposedly in the next few months. So I just wondered what preparation we were making and if we could just get an idea of how that's going to affect us. Thank you.
You decide it. Cameron, take the question.
Councillor, thanks for that. I think we are absolutely on this in terms of monitoring what's happening. We've been watching it very closely. Sharon's heavily involved in some of the kind of senior discussions at a Scottish level. So we do know the kind of numbers, which looked a bit scary, no in the same proportions as Glasgow and Edinburgh, but really significant for us if they happen. So I think we're just waiting to see how it will actually play out. I think the target at the end of the year is maybe no looking as realistic as it had been for the actual streamlined assessment process. But no, we're really keeping an eye on it and try to look at the contingency planning we'd have to put in place, and indeed are already doing some of that.
Okay. Julia Mars.
Thank you, Chair. I have a question on item 15, the contracts paper. Regarding the contract noted in Appendix A, replacement of McClimate House roof of £135,000 and 60 of £135 and £62,000 and 63 pence. Can I seek clarification whether this contract has already been completed or will be, given that McClimate House is currently part of a consultation to consider whether it closes as a care home?
And Joanne.
Thanks, Councillor Mars. This is essential works that are required to keep the facility wind and watertight, so they will be being carried out. As a matter of fact, I believe they have started. The scale of that contract is nowhere near the amount where we would question whether we needed to do it. It needs to be wind and watertight for the users of the facility as it currently stands, and therefore it's been taken independently of social works review.
Okay. Richard Lockhart.
Hi, thank you. Chair, I've got two questions which have always worried me, in the sense of it's a more general question, but when it comes to these numbers, which frankly, they look pretty big to me, I've got one question is, how many of these, bearing in mind we, I presume, try to favour local contractors, how many of these are local contractors and how many of these are national when it comes to these contracts? And the second question is, I suppose, linked. I'm not trying to cast aspersions on anything, but I always find, we always duck behind that magic word procurement, which seems to be almost a hand-washing exercise when we try and find out the costs and try and see why things seem to cost so much. It's almost a hand-washing exercise saying it's not our fault. And I wonder how much we can add, if you like, to the decisions on procurement, what expertise we actually have internally in the council, in the offices, to decide really whether we are being legged over in some cases with contracts simply because the word council is attached to it. And I've seen some people, I've talked to people who say, oh, it's the council, we'll just put the price up and they'll pay. It's a general point, but also it's a question about how many of these are local.
I'm pretty confident that it's not a hand-washing exercise, and I'm pretty sure that most of the officials would agree with that. But anyway, I'm going to ask Joanne to comment. Joanne?
Thanks, Councillor Lockhart. The procurement there is a statutory basis of what we have to do in terms of procurement, so it's not a hand-washing exercise. I would reassure you that there are very robust discussions between ourselves and officers and the officers in the procurement teams to identify the best frameworks and the best access into markets. Clearly we procure as a council very diverse contracts, and some of that can be provided locally and some of it can't. It's not unheard of us to go back out to the market if we don't feel we are getting the best prices or the best value, and sometimes we will re-specify or redefine contracts to try and get better competitive prices. So there is a very robust process in place within the council for officers trying to pursue the best value for money. In terms of the localities, the procurement team are at the moment implementing a new system where we can produce better statistics about the types of companies that get our contracts. But Scotland Excel have confirmed that about 12.8% of our contracts across the council go to local companies. It's very difficult to always track down what is a local company, because a local company might actually be a national company that just has a registered office locally. Or it might be a national company that has a small workforce here. So it's not just as straightforward as saying what's the address that's on the tender document to work out whether the company is local or not. But that is something that the procurement team are looking at.
Thank you for clarifying that, Joanne, and I couldn't agree more. I know that officials worked very hard in the previous report about the acquisition of properties. I know there's a lot of table bashing and and fierce negotiation taking place to make sure that we get best value for money. So be assured that officials don't just take an easy route. You know, I hope you don't. I hope you don't think that, and I hope what Joanne has said has reassured you. Andrea.
Thanks, Chair. Can I maybe just put these, it's a point on agenda item 13 and another on agenda item 14, but if I could just put them both out, that would be me finished, as I'll be glad to hear. So agenda item 13 on page 102, it's talking about the severe weather and the impact that it had on our repair services, which obviously we'll all be well aware of from last year. Because we had to suspend a lot of other routine, if you like, repairs, and that caused a backlog which we're still trying to catch up with, I would suggest, and it certainly, you know, it caused a lot of distress to a lot of tenants, unfortunately. I know the weather's out with everybody's control, but I'd just like to ask, this is going to be an ongoing issue. I'm sure every year the weather, you know, we're going to have these severe weather occurrences. So can I just ask if we've put some procedures in place to deal with that in advance, just some forward planning? Thanks.
Joanne. Thanks, Andrea.
Thanks, Councillor Cowan. The first thing is yes. we have, after the events last year, there was a working group created that reviewed all the processes that we had in place. That working group still exists, and we're constantly reviewing what we do. We work very closely with the colleagues in housing, because it's not just about repairs, it's about all the other things that go around that and about the welfare of tenants. And we also worked with colleagues in finance that manage the call centres, etc. So there are contingency plans. In September each year, that group gets focused and starts to make sure that we've adapted the plans as best we can, and that work is ongoing as we speak.
Great, that's great, thanks. The other, my other point on agenda item 14 is page 116, and it's obviously the risk assessments. There's quite a lot of red, unfortunately, but you know, I understand the current climate. But the thing that I wanted to ask about was the fire service, the non-attendance at empty properties when their alarms go until they have sort of somebody putting eyes on it, so to speak, and confirm that there's a fire. And I know in my own office that this is an issue for us, and we're working on, you know, what we're going to do when our fire alarm goes during the night, how we're going to get that verified by someone in person, and it's causing us, you know, a lot of headaches. So I wondered if the council had any plans on a practical level. I see that you've got staff training and all that sort of thing, which is great, but when they're not there at night, can you tell me what happens now if a fire alarm goes off in a council property? Thank you.
Okay, Joanne.
Yes, Councillor Cowan. So there's a number of things happening for different types of properties, but a majority of our alarms are connected to an out-of-hours system, and then the out-of-hours calls are reported then, and it's not identical for every building, so I don't want to, I'm giving a generic situation, so it's not identical for every building, but then we have property responsible people identified. For out-of-hours cover, we also use an outside company to provide that eyes on, and we're working with colleagues in the corporate health and safety team to develop the safe methods of work for investigations to be carried out. But it is fair to say it is a major concern for us, and it is also a bit of a headache in terms of getting the right answer for every property, because it's not the same for every building.
No. Okay, thank you.
Thanks very much.
Thanks.
I'm conscious we're just about the hour, but I've got one more question, and I think if it's Councillor Ferguson okay with that? Not heard from Councillor Ferguson, if you're okay with it, we could take one more question, because that will bring the meeting to a close rather than having a break. Can you confirm if that's okay, Councillor Ferguson?
Yeah, no, that's absolutely fine.
Absolutely fine. Thank you very much. Thank you, Grant. That's great. So one more question. Eileen Logan.
Thanks, Chair. I was really surprised about some of the questions on procurement. Since the start of this council, I've either sat in the old ABC or Scotland Excel, with the exception of the previous administration 5 years, but I'm back on it again. So I have watched Scotland Excel grow from very small beginnings right up through where nothing really can go through a council without, you know, people scrutinising till you're squeaking, actually. And you have to take your, you have to look at Scotland Excel contracts, you have to look at all the various different things. There's also a national procurement run by, I think it's the Scottish Government, actually. So there's the two procurement organisations in Scotland, and even to the point, school dinners, for instance, if you want to buy your meat or you want to do this, that or the other, you have to go through the Scotland Excel contracts. So it's no a case of, oh, I like you, but I don't like you, oh, well, oh, it's the council, we'll just stick the prices up. The prices are there, governed by the contracts that have been set nationally, either by Scotland Excel or, as I say, the national procurement set up. So it's a very, and I understand that, a very difficult process. It's a very lengthy process, but officers have to abide by strict rules and regulations, and sometimes people are not happy, and I understand that, but also to assure councillors, in particular Lockhart, I know, for instance, that Scotland Excel have days, open days, and I know there have been some here in this council where local contractors can come to speak to them to find out how they can get onto contracts, what can they do, what can they not do, who can they actually speak to even be part of, say, a bigger national company. So that's all out there, and I just wanted, because this is recorded and in a public place, I wanted to make that, to record that and to make sure that people do know how robust it is. And I know that there's a lot of work goes on at Scotland Excel, because I go there and I've been there to get these contracts right. Even, you know, the for care, nursing standard, you know, the care, all that, everything's there. So if there is local people who feel that they maybe should be on maybe contracts or get more work, then they should approach Scotland Excel and find out where the next meet the buyer, isn't it? And as I say, I know there's one here, I think definitely one in Glasgow, so there's various places that people can actually go. And on the roof of my Climate House, I think the Chief Executive succinctly said at a meeting that I was at, the home, or the McClimate House residential care home is not closed as of just now, and therefore, yes, people cannot sit with a leaking roof or whatever it is. The comfort of the residents is paramount. Who knows what will happen? Nothing's been decided, and that's the reason that the work had to be done. And Clarence Snedden succinctly told people that when they asked the self-same question. But thank you.
Thanks very much, Eileen. So can we agree then that we've just noted all of these last 4 items in the agenda? Thank you very much. So I've no items of urgent business other than to say that the special meeting that was proposed for later this year has now been postponed into next year. I believe there was an email circulated to inform members, and the next regular meeting of the Housing Technical Resources Committee is on Wednesday the 7th of February. So, seems a wee bit early to be saying this, but have a Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year. Thank you very much for your attendance.
Thank you.